have quite a number of people on Zoom, and we'd like to make sure that we start on time for those people.
对，我们这边还有2分钟以后开始，因为我们这个是同时线上线下直播，所以说呢，这个线上的这个观众的话，那边也是准备在1点30的时候准时开始。
So I might be looking over your heads, but I'm actually looking at the camera to the Zoom people, so I've got a couple of audiences to cater for.
所以您要是发现我的这个目光呢是盯着您后方的话，那是因为我正在看这个后面 Zoom 的观众。
There were also some people in the museum who were walking around who said that they'll be coming here, but they're not here yet, so we'll just wait for another minute.
还有一些这个访客的话呢，可能是在下面参观，然后呢，他们说过要上来，我们可能再稍微等一下他们就好了。
So please have a chat between you for another minute.
所以说可以这个继续聊天，畅聊无阻。
Yeah, much later. No, we're not.
对，正好挡住，我看不见。我说正好被你挡住，对。
Okay, I think we'll start now. James, can we get the ball rolling there?
好的，那我们准备开始了。
Okay. Now I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you for those attending on Zoom and in person. We really appreciate you coming in. We realise COVID is still with us, and the fact that you've come here today, we very much appreciate that. Thank you.
然后首先呢，欢迎各位来宾，非常感谢大家在这个疫情的影响下，还是来现场或者是通过线上的形式来参加我们的活动，十分的感激不尽。
I'd like to first begin today's event by acknowledging the Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri people, the traditional custodians of this land on which we meet today, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I also extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
首先呢，这个按照我们澳大利亚机构的惯例，我们现在对于今天所在这一片土地上的原住民的这些民族来表达我们的敬意。我们所在的这片土地呢是叫 Boonwurrung 和 Wurundjeri 民族，对于他们的过去、现在的长老表达我们的敬意，并且也对澳洲原住民以及托雷斯海峡岛民表达我们的敬意。
I forgot to introduce myself by firstly thanking the Victorian State Government for supporting this event. We very much appreciate their support.
然后呢，也要感谢一下维州政府的对我们活动的支持。
What I'd like to say today is that the Museum of Chinese Australian History welcomes you to the We Are Strong Within program, a program that supports Chinese Australians in coping with the growing prevalence of racism in Australia.
那澳华博物馆呢，也是欢迎大家来参加我们的华人当自强的一个专项，针对目前在澳大利亚日益严重的一些这种种族歧视的这种问题，我们有这样的一个讲座。
Whilst this is a social issue in today's society, the museum has entered into this space because of our organisation's responsibility to Chinese Australians, to help all of us proudly carry our history and heritage forward and maintain their equal status as part of Australia's contemporary multicultural society.
那虽然在我们当今社会这是一个问题，博物馆呢也是由于作为这样的一个机构，我们认为呢有对澳洲华裔这样的责任，帮助大家 对于我们华人的这个伟大文化以及文化传承，能够进一步的向前发扬光大，并且呢，在澳大利亚的这个当代多元文化社会里头呢，来获得一个平等的地位。
Today's seminar and the follow-up workshop next week are particularly tailored for Chinese Australians who wish to understand the legal aspects of racism, coming to terms with facing racist abuse, both at the moment of its happening and its following residual effects on the individual. And also how and who you can reach out to for assistance. The program is very much for the individual, helping each person build a resilience where they can say, we are strong within.
今天的讲座呢，以及我们每一周这个讲座后面一周同样的时间会举行的这个实际操作技巧的这个研讨会呢，是专门针对澳洲华人来设计的。那么可以帮助大家了解种族歧视的法律相关的法律权益等等，以及呢，如果在亲身经受过这种种族歧视的经历之后，如何当时做出回应，或者是事后如果发现这个心理有一些什么残余的这种效果，如何去应对，然后以及会告诉大家如何呢，在哪里有这个相关的支持机构可以提供各种协助。那么所以说这个讲座内容呢，实际上是非常的这个个人化，针对每一个人的，所以帮助大家来建立一个这个坚韧的这样的一个对抗种族歧视的这种信心，然后可以非常强有力的说，华人当自强。
Now I'd like to thank our event supporters, the Australian China Youth Association, Empower Tactical, Australian Jiangsu Association, Melbourne Today, VicWise, Bastion Insights, SonoLink, the Shenzhen Association of Australia, the Asian Business Association of Wyndham, and the Australia Chinese News. They all helped us put this program together by promoting it out to the Chinese Australian public. And amongst the whole group of people, we have got to 300,000 people promoting this program.
然后接下来呢，希望借此机会再次的感谢我们的各个赞助方，因为没有他们的赞助，我们是不能够会有今天这样的一个活动的。那么在这一个赞助商的名册上面呢，包括我们的 Empower Technical、中联集团、澳大利亚江苏会、澳大利亚深圳联谊总会、VicWise、今日墨尔本、澳洲红领军、Bastion Insights、澳大利亚云登市亚洲商会、中澳青年联合会。那么通过这一些协会的支持呢，帮助我们给许多的这个澳洲的华人来宣传我们的活动，帮助大家知道我们的活动。
Thank you, Bruce. I hope you will have an informative and constructive afternoon that will provide you with positive responses to racist activity that you have or may encounter in the future. And I'd like to, there I am. I was wondering where that slide went to, because I wanted to introduce myself as the CEO of the Chinese Museum, and here I finally am. And thank you, Bruce, for interpreting for me.
好的，那希望今天下午的讲座呢，能给大家带来很有用的信息，给大家有益处，然后同时呢，也帮助大家了解如何用积极的回应方式来应对任何的这种种族歧视的行为。然后呢，刚才我在找这一页，就是也没找到，这个正好给大家介绍一下，本人是王新香，是这个澳华历史博物馆的馆长、首席执行官，谢谢大家。
Thank you. So now I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Judy Tang. She is a commissioner at the Victorian Multicultural Commission. Thanks, Judy. Would you like to come to the stage?
接下来有请曾可嘉博士，维多利亚州多元文化委员会主席，来给我们介绍一些基本情况。
Thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. So my name's Judy. I'm a commissioner from the Victorian Multicultural Commission.
谢谢 Mark。然后大家好，我的名字是曾可嘉，是维多利亚州多元文化委员会，代表这个机构。
Yeah, my Chinese name is Zheng Kejia. All right. Before we start, I do want to invite everyone. If you have any questions, just raise your hand. Happy to answer. And also those on Zoom, there should be a Q&A function. There is? Okay, perfect. There's a Q&A function, so just ask questions, interact with us as we go along. Because the main point of this workshop is to ensure that you get as much out of it as we can provide. So we have some information, but to make sure that it answers the questions and the information that you want, just let us know, and we're happy to have that discussion. It's meant to be a bit of a free flow event that we're going to have today.
好的，那这个跟我们上一期节目可能稍微有点不一样的呢，我们这次选择的是呢，可以大家如果任何时候有任何的疑问，可以随时提出来。这个不管是现场的观众也好，还是这个在线上的各位观众也好，因为呢，虽然我们准备了大量的信息，可能有我们准备的这个结构和方式，但是呢，希望根据这个大家的这个需求为主，大家有任何的问题随时提出，我们将这样的信息以最大的程度、最积极的方式帮助大家。
Thank you, Bruce. Really quick information about me. So I was born in Australia. My parents were Chinese, Vietnamese. So they were born in Vietnam and migrated to Australia as refugees from the Vietnam War.
然后给大家简单介绍一下我的这个情况。我本人呢是出生在澳大利亚，但是呢我的双亲呢他们是这个华裔的越南籍的这个华人，然后当时呢是以难民的身份移民到澳大利亚。
So I unfortunately, showing my age, I probably experienced racism in the mid-80s as a little girl. My family were at a Chinese restaurant, and one of the people there must have gotten drunk and told us to go back to our own country. Yeah, thank you.
像我个人的话呢，这个在这边待的时间比较久，那么也经历过一些这个种族歧视这方面的一些个人经历。比方说，在这个80年代的时候，那个时候我还是小女孩，家里开着中餐馆，然后有一次呢，可能是这个客人喝醉了，然后就开始说什么回到你原来的国家去这样的话。
So my parents at that time wouldn't know what to do. I think what they would have done is just gotten up and walked away anyway. But they knew that it impacted me enough because I had asked, are they really going to send us away from Australia, which is the only home that I knew because I was born here.
然后呢，父母亲那个时候肯定也不知道应该怎么做，那可能就是这个忍气吞声，然后没有说什么。但是呢，他们心中非常清楚这个事情对我是有影响的，因为我去问过他们，这个我们是不是真的会被送回国这样子。
So I guess racism impacts Asian Australians from all walks of life. You know, whether you're born here, whether you've come here at a young age or an older age, it's something that we might have experienced, unfortunately. But having said that, the silver lining is that it's actually increased my passion from a very young age to make sure that no other child or Asian Australian experiences racism as much as possible.
所以说呢，不论这个大家的华裔背景是在什么样的一种背景，从哪儿来的华人，还是说在这边出生，还是说移民过来，还是说这个在人生的这个比较成熟的阶段移民过来，可能都会经历到这样子种族歧视的一些现象。那么我本人呢，也是可能由于这样子的一些经历，然后呢，让我对于致力于如何确保来帮助我们的华人，不管什么背景，来抵抗或者是对抗这种种族歧视这方面呢，都充满了这种事业的激情。
So that's a bit about me. I won't go too much through my slides because I think we all understand what racism is. We don't need to go through it too much. But as we all know, Victoria is a multicultural and multi-faith society. We're a very diverse community.
好的，那这个作为种族歧视的定义呢，我觉得大家可能都已经很清楚了，就不详述了。但是呢，一个基调呢，就是我们维多利亚州呢是一个多元文化、多宗教信仰的一个多样性的一个社会。
Easy. All right, and I hope we all know that there's no place for racism in Victoria. The state government is very much against it, and we're also doing what we can to make sure that doesn't happen for all our citizens.
所以说呢，这个可能大家也知道，但是呢，不知道的话呢，就是维州政府的话呢，是对于种族歧视呢是属于这种绝对这种禁止的这种态度，而且这个禁止的态度，并且呢，这个我们作为政府机构的话呢，也是在这方面有很严格的各项的这种法律来保护大家的权益。
So it starts from something small to something big is what we call racist behavior. So it can be something what seems little as racial jokes, name calling, all the way up to hate speech and physical assault.
那么从这个种族歧视的程度来讲的话呢，它有不同的级别，从最轻的这种有这种种姓的这种玩笑或者是侮辱人、起外号，可能会往更严重的这种程度发展。
And something that Isabel will talk about later is, and I feel like I've noticed within the communities, is there's been a shift from the more overt hate speech and physical assault, down to the more name calling, which, as we see here, is still racist behavior.
然后待会儿这个张丽婷也会给我们介绍，这个在现在我们看到的这种种族歧视的行为呢，可能跟原来的比较明目张胆式的这种方式呢，开始有一些不一样，更属于这种比较隐晦的，或者是说一些这种侮辱性的话。
And feel free to have a think about it yourself, whether you feel like there's been a bit of that change from the more overt presentation to more the subtle presentation of what you think might be racism.
大家呢也可以回想一下自己生活的时候，会不会有注意到一些这种方式的改变。
All right, let's do this. So I just skipped a few because I want to talk about the definition of direct discrimination, and that's where you have 3 sections that intersect. So first of all, there's what we call unfavourable treatment, and on a protected attribute, whether it's a person's race, religion, belief, or activity, and in an area of public life.
好的，这个地方我想要区别一个概念，就是直接性的这个种族歧视行为，它这个呢是有3个条件都要同时触发，就是这个交集的这个地方。哪3个条件呢？第一个就是属于这个出现了不公平的对待，还有一个方面呢，就是说它涉及到了这个法律保护的一些民族种姓的这种特征、宗教信仰或者是某种节日啊、活动等等。另外一个呢，就是它属于是在这个公众生活的范围内，这3者的交集点属于直接性的歧视行为。
So you might find it interesting that our race, our ethnicity, our Asianness is what Victorian state government considers a protected attribute.
那么这个像我们亚洲的这种文化背景也好、长相也好，所有的这些特性呢，也都是属于这个维州政府所保护的这种叫做种姓特性的这个内容之一。
Perfect. And this is what they consider areas of public life: civic centres, bus stops, public transport, shopping centres, and so forth.
然后这个所谓公众生活呢，就是指大家平时生活中，你比方说任何的这种公众可以进入的地方，买菜、购物、坐公共交通等等这样子的一些情况。
Yeah, schools and hospitals as well.
还有学校、医院等等。
All right, so let's finish off again, just to get us thinking about questions or things you'd like to share and reflect on. So we have here Ahmed's story. So when Ahmed arrived to look at a house, the real estate agent tells him that the house has just been leased to someone else. So this has happened to Ahmed before. So before he goes home, he asks a friend to ring the real estate agent asking about the house. And the real estate agent says that it's still vacant.
那这个就是一个例子，看看大家这个在平时生活的时候有没有说自己经历或听到别人有这样子的情况，也可以提一些问题等等的。那这个阿麦德呢，他去这个房产中介这边要租房子，然后呢，这个中介就跟他说这房子已经租掉了。然后呢，因为阿麦德以前经历过这样子的情况，就找朋友又跟中介打了电话，结果中介就说这个房子还可以租。
So we see here is an example of what you call, we were talking about, it's more of that quiet racism that's happening.
所以说这个呢，就是他现在的这种方式呢，就比较隐蔽的一种这种歧视行为。
So let's talk about how we can approach and fix it and work against it as much as possible throughout the rest of this workshop panel. Panel, yeah.
那接下来呢，我们就看看像这种情况，我们怎么样来应对，怎么样来更有效的想到解决办法。
Perfect. Oh, am I meant to do this? So today's order of events, we're going to go through 5 things. Understanding racism, which is what I think I went through most of it, but Isabel will expand on that.
好的，这个是我们今天的这个几个主要内容方块。第一块呢是这个什么是种族主义，我刚才做了一个初步的介绍，之后的话，张丽婷 Isabel 呢也会给我们做详述。
Then we've got a very highly experienced and wonderful person, Lily, talking about people's legal rights.
然后呢，接下来呢会有这个我们的资深律师来给大家介绍在种族歧视各方面每个人的这个权益。
And we also have an equally experienced Dr. Queenie Wu, who's going to go through racism and mental health.
然后我们的吴博士呢，这个是更多的从心理健康的角度来告诉大家如何来自我保护。
I will come back on and talk a little bit about the support structures in racism from a government or community perspective.
之后的话，我会从这个政府和社区提供的这个辅助支持体系这方面来给大家做一些介绍。
And then we have Shifu Damien at the end, going through some practical ways of combating racism.
最后呢，会有我们的 Damien 武术大师来给大家介绍一些实际的如何抵御
Okay.
这个。
Perfect. So look forward to all of that. And like I said, feel free to ask questions. Are there any questions so far? Yes.
last Tuesday. Right? Yeah, and actually, last Tuesday, which is the 15th, which is the 正月15, right? And I was decided by myself and going to watch Moulin Rouge, which is the French music show. So once it finished, I decided not going to catch public transport because I thought, I said I don't want to go to, drive a car to the city, so I decided to use the public transport and coming in, and then so when it finished, and I went into the train in a free station. That was 9:30. When I was concentrated, I was excited for, after watch the show, I thought, I just want to send, some photos to my friends, so I didn't realize what's happening. All of a sudden, I have one European woman in front of me, middle age, possibly over 30, pointed to me, said, "You're Asian, market fighter, you should not be here, you should get out." Sweat FF words continuously and snatched my mobile phone.
Yeah.
Right? So therefore, and I was really on of shock, and I think it's what's happening, what will happen to here. In a public arena, now, today, after COVID, right? And so the people want to enjoy life, Friend Station, which is one of the largest in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Should be safest in a public arena. It happened, right? Luckily, and I have two Australian women in the middle, it's like a 30s, and one each, and I took it away and returned my mobile phone.
Oh, that's good.
But I didn't say sorry. And when I sit in my chair, beside me, there was a Australian old man. I think it's look at over 70. And when the woman swear to me, he didn't stare back, he didn't interfere, he didn't say anything. Till the woman snatched my mobile phone, he's standing up. Then after that, they took their two ladies and take this woman away. Then he said to me, he said, "Are you okay?" But certainly I will not let him snatch your mobile phone. Right? And then the need escalated. There's a group of Australian women down there, and only one woman, a young girl, and she's like my daughter's age. It's early 20s. So she's just basically run towards me and said, "Are you okay? Should we report him to the police?"
Yeah.
So in the railway station, basically, non-police have arrived, and I'm sure there may be another platform, but there is none of that. Right? I was shocked, and I was really don't know. And how to acting there, and how can they really. Then I tried to get on, the trains nearly come up. All of a sudden I saw a man, a middle-aged, possibly 50 years old, like a middle 50s years old man. He was a European build, and it's really tanned. He's possibly pretty tall. And he was really looking at the bypass this group, the European woman straight walking towards me. And I thought, stared at me, and I thought it's weird. So I get on the train. After I get on the train, he was get on the same my carriage and sits 2 seats behind me. Then I was still thinking about what's happening. So I get off the train in my station, he get off too. Then I also have another passenger get off, and the three of us, and one person quick go back home. But I thought it's weird, right? And he was I'm walking slow, he's walking slow. He bypassed, it's behind me. So I thought I stopped. I let him bypass me so I can follow him. What happened is that he was 2 steps further, he stopped. And I thought, okay, I bypassed him. So because I also already told my husband to, before I finished the show, I told my husband to pick me up.
What happened at the end?
Anyway, then the corner pretty dark. I walking fast, and he was walking more faster, also nearly close to me. So it's luckily my husband, it's arrived. There's a bus station, the bus stopped, arrived. I stopped and I watched him. He didn't get on the bus. He was in the bus stop. He was still waiting for me. He thought I maybe get on the bus. He was waiting for me till he saw my husband, and he was walk away from run to the beside the Ramadan bush. So all those experiences happened. What's happened in nowadays? Why? Because I'm woman, Asia, alone. There's created a society in here, and now it's become increasingly and shock. And also I just found because we target in the station, if it's the men want to target the women, they're pretty have the women get on the same.
Sorry, what was your name? What was your name?
My name is June.
June? June? June, yes. Judy, nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Problem. We're definitely going to talk about this later as well, because we'll be able to expand on the situation.
Exactly. I would like to have a here and more what's the steps. My personal experience and also as a follow-up, right, I wanted to share. And then reporting to the police, and so far as today, and still has nothing to follow up.
Well, we can definitely talk about it. It sounds like I'm really sorry it's happened to you. So, I mean, and certainly I'm not very happy about it either.
Sorry for the interruption.
So we'll talk about that.
To share with this, and possibly as an example, what's the reporting system? What is the consultations and etc. That should be really good.
And we will go through that.
Thanks so much.
Perfect. No, thank you, June. Appreciate that.
For the benefit of the Mandarin speaker, that story is 这个就是给各位这个听不懂英文的观众的话，我建议是最好这位女士起来这个简单的解释一下，因为这个故事太长了刚才，然后呢也是非常的这个撕心裂肺，哎也可以啊。
Yeah, we'll probably go through it later.
那我就这个快速总结一下，简单来说就是晚上去这个看演出，然后呢进城的那一段呢是准备自己来坐这个交通进去，然后完了以后出来的时候呢。就出现他在自拍的时候呢，就有这个高加索这种类型的30岁的一个女的，就对他非常的就开始说了一些非常不友好的话，而且还把手机给抢了。之后呢，虽然旁边有人帮忙，但是也有人冷漠的这个旁观。之后呢，结果回家的时候呢，还被尾随。这个，但是这个就是很气愤的一点，就是作为在现在当今澳大利亚多元文化社会里边，还能出现这样子的这个状况，这是一个概述。具体的详述的话，待会儿看有没有机会我们再说一下。
Again, June, I'm so sorry it's happened to you, but at the same time, silver lining, it is a perfect place for us to talk about what's happened and what we can potentially do from here with regards to what's happened to you. So I'm sorry it's happened, and again, that's why we have workshops like these, to make sure it doesn't happen again. For all of it, I understand. Yeah, it's definitely hard. Well, I'm glad you came today. So it's perfectly wonderful and a perfect segue for me to say hello to Isabel, who's going to talk a bit more about the statistics, and then we'll go into the legal side and the support systems that we'll talk about later, and the mental health side as well.
所以说从
Yeah, definitely.
很多大家的这个个人的这种经历呢，我们就会来想如何来找到这些相应的解决办法。那么接下来呢，我们也会让这个 Isabel 来介绍一下这个种族歧视的一个在澳大利亚的一些数据概况。之后的话呢，我们会对于更多的像刚才 June 的这种个人经历的一些处理方法，以及如何报告相关机构做更多的介绍。
First of all, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and thank you so much for everyone turned up for today. My name is Isabel, and I'm a trained researcher, a social researcher. That's my bread and butter. What I'm going to do later is going to share a little bit of research insights with everyone here, because this data is from our community, based on 500 people. So you're not alone. A lot of your experience is actually experienced by others like us. So I'm going to pass the floor to Bruce to translate for me.
非常感谢刚才June的这个很真实的一段分享，然后呢，这个也非常感谢大家各位专门现场来参加我们活动的各位。那么我的名字叫张丽婷，英文名叫 Isabel。然后呢，我是属于对于社会研究方面呢是属于我的专业领域。然后我们也是在这个种族歧视这一方面呢做了大量的这种社区的调研，有很多的数据。对500名这样子的人士进行采访，那么所以说呢，就是说在这样子的一个经历当中呢，其实大家都不是说您经历过这个事情就是您一个人，而是其实很多人很大面积的人，大家都有这样的经历。接下来的话呢，也给大家看一下一些相应的这种数据，有个更直观的认识。
对。 I want to introduce myself a little bit as well. So I was born in China. When I was 17, I moved to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, to do my school, high school. And then I lived there for 11 years. Then I moved to Singapore for 4 years, doing a research job there. And then moved to Australia about 9 years ago. So 我也可以讲华语，但是因为今天的这个时间的关系，所以 I'm going to speak in English， 然后 Bruce 他会用中文来做一个翻译。
然后给大家做一个我个人的一个快速的自我介绍。那我也是中国出生，17岁的时候去了马来西亚吉隆坡，在那边上高中，然后在那里待了11年。之后呢，在新加坡工作了4年以后，9年前来到澳大利亚。然后I can speak Mandarin as well, but for the sake of efficiency, I'll speak in English and be translated into Mandarin.
All right, I think inspired by Judy, I'm going to share my personal racism experience. I didn't experience outward sort of aggression experience, racism experience before, but what I've experienced is at the workplace, and that's a lot more subtle. We have this term called bamboo ceiling. So when I first joined my previous company, and we had a big company event, and people walked in and looked at me saying that, are you an intern? Are you here for, rather lower sort of job, and just because I'm Chinese and female and looking younger. So that was, and then my career progression is a lot slower compared to my peers as well.
好的，那接下来呢，给大家介绍一下我的一些在种族歧视上面经历的一些这种经历。它可能不是这种非常明显的这种当面的这种辱骂这种行为，但是我呢是在这个工作场合。那大家来澳洲呢，可能都听说过这个叫做竹事业，就竹天花板，有点针对我们，就是意思就是对于华人的事业发展的天花板。那么呢，有一次呢，我去参加一个活动，然后呢，实际上我是去这个来做讲座，但是呢，有一些这个听讲座的人进来了以后呢，看到我就说，哦，你是实习生吗？这个。所以说他有一个既定的印象，就认为是不是这个只要是亚洲的女性，然后呢看上去这个比较年轻，就是做这种可能比较低端一点的工作等等这样子的，或者是因为这样子的事情呢，对自己的这个职业生涯呢，它发展呢会有一些阻碍的作用。
Yeah, so I don't have answers for these sort of experience, but what I know is as new migrants, as Chinese, as Asians, we're trying to make a living in Australia, and we have to work double the hard or triple the hard to make a name for ourselves, to establish ourselves. Hopefully this will change. We do see more multicultural representation in workforce in Australia. So hopefully this will eventually become better. And I think each one of us today here will have to do this together to make that shift, to make that change.
对于这个问题的话，你说要有快速的解决答案的话呢，我可能也没有。但是呢，我想说的是，我知道每一个来澳的新华人移民，我们如果想要在事业或者是职业生涯上得到同样的成功，可能要付出2倍甚至3倍的努力。但是呢，我相信我们只要是一起来想办法发出我们的声音，能够让我们在这个职业领域里边多元文化性在澳大利亚更强，我们一定能够会为这个更公平的一个多元文化社会做出我们的贡献。
All right, let's come back to research. Just very quickly, give you a bit of context. We started tracking the sentiment of our Chinese and the Asian communities since start of the COVID. That was in early 2020. And since then, we know that the number of Chinese and Asian have experienced some level of racism and discrimination has significantly rise. I just want to really quickly summarize some of the key insights. First of all, racism and discrimination can be very subtle, like what Judy mentioned. A lot of times can be very, confronting, can be very physical. You can see it, and a lot of times that's very subtle. It could be a tone, a words they use, the way they talk to you, the way they look at you. So all of that in that spectrum will be considered as racism and discrimination. And the second thing I
然后
like to
这个我们的研究这方面呢，给大家说一下研究背景呢，是在这个疫情开始的时候，也就是2020年初开始做的。和我们的研究发现呢，在疫情开始之后呢，对于华裔澳洲人的这个种族歧视的行为是有大幅的上涨。那么我想总结一下，它有几个关键点。第一个呢，就是像刚才朱莉说的，曾可嘉博士说的，这个有很多的这种隐性的这种行为，那有可能是这个跟您讲话的语气、看你的方式、说话的方式等等，很多的这种方面的这种隐性的这种方式。
Just because it's subtle doesn't mean it's okay. So I just wanted to sort of reiterate that point.
但是呢，即便是这个方式很隐性，它都是属于这种种族歧视，都是不可以接受的。
Second thing I like to share with everyone here is that a lot of these racism and discrimination cases are underreported, and that's many reasons leading to this sort of phenomenon, social phenomenon. Firstly is, culturally speaking, as Chinese, as Asians, we generally don't like to rock the boat, we don't like to confront people creating conflicts, we don't like to create issues. Even though we are the one experiencing these sort of unfair treatments, we are the one feeling we are the one causing issues. So that mentality is deeply ingrained in our culture and our society.
然后这个第二点呢，就是说这个在这一类的隐性的种族歧视的事件上面呢，它存在很大部分的这种情况呢都没有去报告。那这个呢，它跟我们的华人文化有关，我们华人属于比较低调，然后尽量不惹事、不生事。不进行正面冲突，然后甚至于有的时候呢，会觉得这个造成问题可能是自己的原因，所以说这个也是在我们的文化当中有这样的一个原因。
And the second reason is we don't know our rights. And this is very common. I think this is one of the reasons we have Lily today to explain the legal side of things and having Judy representing government and knowing what's our rights. And not just knowing what's our rights and how to apply to our day-to-day life is equally important.
然后呢，这个第二个原因呢，就是很多人可能不知道，因为来到这个新的一个国家，不知道自己在这方面有哪些权益。那这个也是能理解，非常的清楚。像这也是为什么我们今天请到了这个政府代表曾可嘉博士，以及我们的法律的这个专家李勇来为我们不仅告诉我们有哪些权益，同时应该怎样来行使自己的这些权利。
I think your example, June, it's a really great example. A lot of times we don't know what to do. And, when we're experiencing it, how do we navigate this situation, even after what we experienced? So that's something we're going to address later with Lily.
好的，这个就像刚才June 感谢您的分享。很多时候呢，发生的时候，我们真的是这个惊愕，不知道那个时候应该怎么样来反应，或者是事情发生之后。我们如何在这个心里来思考这个问题？那这个之后的话呢，也会有我们的吴博士来介绍一些这种心理的自我保护的一些方式。
And the other main barrier here is language. And I'm really happy, June, you stand up and sharing your personal experience, because a lot of times we, lack of better words, shy to talk about it because of language barrier or cultural barrier. So stand up and having a voice is so important. And one of the research insights I'd like to share with everyone here is the younger, we do see a lot younger new migrants, Chinese or Asian migrants, start to really stand up and, reporting these sort of experience, and that's a great shift. And they're a lot more confident and comfortable to talk about these conflicts, talk about these confrontation situation.
然后呢，这个另外一个这个原因呢，就是可能是语言文化的这方面的障碍，导致我们有些时候呢，可能不愿意来把这样的事情拿出来说。但是非常感激刚才 June 呢很有勇气，也是来分享这样子的一个事情。因为很多时候呢，可能我们会感到有点害羞、不好意思，或者有一些文化上的一些禁忌，可能会不这么做。但是呢，只有发出声音，才有可能让别人听到，才有可能做出改变。然后在我们的报告中呢，显示出呢，现在也是越来越多的年轻人他会出来报告这样的现象，这个也是我们看到的一个变化。年轻人呢，对于报告这类的事情呢，可能感到更有自信，而且呢，也觉得更自然、更从容。
All right, I think right now I'm going to give it back to the floor. Do you have any questions? Do you have any examples or experience that you would like to share, as well as online?
好，看看大家有没有。
You say that your research started in 2020.
2020, right?
2020, yes. This one is 2020.
January?
March. March
So,
and Jan.
and what is
Yeah.
the end date of this report?
Oh, we keep tracking it every quarter.
So this is up to...
This is probably just one of the first tracking
Right.
report. Yes,
How big is the sample size?
500.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the cross-section? Like age-wise?
General population, Chinese,
Yeah.
Australians, general population.
You have both
Yeah.
male and female?
Yes, male, female. That's right.
Are you at liberty to say what like age-wise, have you got...
Very broad,
Yeah,
across all age groups. Yeah,
right, okay.
yeah. It's a natural fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't select them. They answering the survey based on the general population.
Okay.
Yeah, we call it
So
weight out.
So you said
500
500,
across Australia.
right. Let me see how I put it. How strong is that an indication of the total picture?
Right. It's any research sample size is never enough. You know, you can do 500, you can do 5,000. But what we need to see is a trend. It's the relativity. So what we do see is the tracking from the beginning of 2020 to today. We do see a huge increase, visible, significant increase in terms Chinese Australians experiencing racism. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but research is about tracking and seeing the trend, and the trend is being increasing significantly. Yes.
So is that 500? You asked the same 500 people the second time and the third time?
No, it's the same community. Yeah.
这个问题呢，就是刚刚 Sebastian 问的，就是关于这个研究里边的样本总数，然后这个会不会500人会不会比较少？然后呢，这边的回答呢，就是说它这个是针对所有的华裔群体，没有不分年龄、不分这个性别。然后呢，它的这个跨区呢是从2020年初3月份开始到现在一直在做。这个幻灯片上的内容呢，可能是这个第一个季度做出来的一些结果。然后这个结果呢，从它可以表现出来的是一个相对性的一个趋势。那么作为这个问卷类的这种调查来讲的话呢，样本数永远是可以扩大的，这个是科学就是数据统计研究界的一个共识。但是呢，它可以体现出它相关的相对性。
Yeah, and what I want to say also, based on what we know about our community, is that this is reported. This is, self-claim, and there's many cases hasn't been made known or reported, so the number could be larger.
对，然后提示一点呢，这个它是报告上来的这种情况，然后呢，可能还存在社区里边发生了很多，但是却没报告。
Sorry, you had a question? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Emilia Cross, and I'm here on behalf of the Australia-China Friendship Society. One of the questions I had for you about the survey, how did you collect the data? Was it verbal interviews or written self-reporting?
We have a whole mechanic built for this research. So Bastion Insights is a research company, one of the largest in Australia. Right. So that's what we do. We have the whole team, whole business set up to do research, and for the Chinese community, we have a community that's dedicated to do research called Golden Voice. So it's a non-commercial, research-based community, online community, panel to do research.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to do was to congratulate our consecutive interpreter. Hello. You're doing a great job. I used
supposed
to
to be
be in the
invisible.
department in RMIT that... Yes, so I taught people like you, so that's why I'm interested in that. And the other question, not question, but comment I wanted to make was, I am sorry to hear that 70 years after I arrived here from southern Italy, you should have heard the names they called us, that this is still going on. It's
Absolutely.
really so unacceptable.
And this is not just for the Chinese or Asian communities. I believe this is for all migrants. Yes. I like how you guys challenge the research because it's quite confronting. And I can tell you the numbers right now is even more confronting. And this is something that I would deal with state government and federal government every day. Because we work with state and federal government every day and telling them this is what's happening. And this is one of the reasons we started this event, to invite everyone from the community to give you a voice. Because we know it's happening and it's confronting. All right.
这个Amelia 刚才就是问了一个问题。I think for the benefit of the Amelia 刚才回了一个问题，她是这个中澳友谊协会的，然后代表中澳友谊协会，然后刚才就问到了像这种做数据调查的方式是具体是怎么样的。那么就是从张丽婷这边的回答就是介绍一下 Bastion 这家公司呢是澳大利亚数一数二的，专门做这个这种很特定方向的这种数据研究的。对于这个数据调查呢，它是有一个专门的团队，而且有一个专门的一套体系来做，有一个专门的一个获取这样子声音样本的这样的一个社群，我们管它叫做这个金嗓音或者是金声音。然后这个社群呢，它是一个非盈利的这样的一个组织，我们专门用来收集相关的这种信息。然后刚才Amelia也分享说呢，自己这个来这边70多年了，但是呢，其实自己个人也还是经历到这个有一些人可能对于他来的这个地方，深南意大利是吧？有一些这个专门的一些用语来称呼他们。然后呢，然后张丽婷这边介绍说，像这个研究报告呢，是会有很多人看了以后会觉得哇，怎么是这个样子，或者甚至于提出自己的疑问，因为这样子的报告结果呢，实际上确实看上去了以后会让人觉得大吃一惊。但是呢，这个也就是每天确实正在发生的一个情况。那么像 Bastion 我们公司呢，也会向政府来不断的提供这样的信息，帮助政府了解真真正正在社区里边的这种情况。那也是今天我们之所以有了这样子的研究数据信息，才有了今天这样子的活动，来帮助大家创造一个发出自己声音的平台，帮助大家来改变这样的现状。
All right, I'm going to pass the floor to our legal expert Lily, and she's going to take over from here.
接下来有请李立用博士来给我们介绍在法律方面的一些权益。
Thank you. I'm really glad that there are some questions from the floor, and I think we'll use that as our scenario. I'm not going to take long because I think we've got Queenie coming up in about 5 minutes. So I just wanted to set the legal framework for where we are at. And thank you, Amelia, for saying that 70 years ago, the names they were calling for the Italians that were coming over. And I think migrants have had a history of suffering from racial discrimination and racial vilification for many, many years. And I think it was the Greeks, and then the Italians, and then the Vietnamese, and, you know, and it goes on and on. I just wanted to share that the framework is, Amelia, that we've been trying to do this since 1965, when we had an international convention on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination.
好的，这个，然后也非常感谢大家刚才踊跃的这个提出自己的问题。然后呢，像我们这个所有的这种移民呢，来到这个澳洲的这个时候呢，都会经历到各种各样的这种民族或者是种族这方面的这种歧视的问题，不管是最先这个开始的希腊人、意大利人、越南人，数不尽说不完。然后呢，这么多年来呢，但是也在不断的从法律方面呢，在做这方面的一些相关事情。最早的工作呢，也是从1965年，我们澳大利亚呢也就承认了这个联合国的一个反对任何形式的种族歧视的这样一个联合国公约。
So I just want to set the legal framework. We've got federal legislation and we have state legislation. So the federal legislation is the Racial Discrimination Act 1975, it came in, and the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission Act in 1986.
然后呢，简单的说一下这个法律框架，从联邦级还有每个各州领地都有自己的相关针对反种族歧视的法律。联邦级的这个法 ，Could you go back to the previous page？1975年联邦反种族歧视法以及1986年人权及公平机会委员会法。
And in Victoria, we have the Equal Opportunity Act 2010 and the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act of 2001.
维州的立法呢是这两个，它一个是公平机会法2010年的版本，然后一个是2001年种族与这个宗教融合法。
So we've heard from Judy about the practical definitions of racism and discrimination and vilification. I just wanted to say that bad behavior is not protected by racial discrimination laws, okay? So there is a distinction with people behaving badly. So, for example, June, is it, encountered some bad behavior in Flinders Street Station, which is a public place. That particular piece of bad behavior extends into protected attributes that Judy mentioned, because they mentioned violence with forceful words in relation to harassing or intimidating you. June, you felt really harassed and intimidated, and you felt that there was someone directing some venom at you because of your race. They did mention, very rude words about your race.
刚才这个 Judy 也给我们介绍过什么是属于直接的这个歧视行为，但是我这边想要提醒大家的一点就是说，不是说所有的不好的行为都是属于歧视行为，因为呢，就像刚才 June 给大家分享的呢，他这个在公众场合对他有这种言语暴力，或者是身体暴力，或者是这种抢东西的这种行为，或者是骚扰的这样的情况，当他涉及到了是因为跟种姓这个受法律保护的这个特性相关的时候，它是这样子的一个情况。当时
So you did the right thing, and also everyone around you did the right thing, which is by standing up. If there were people around you that called out that bad behavior, that racial discrimination or racial vilification of conduct at the time of the case, you felt supported by the people that took the phone off that man. Did you, Jude?
Well, the thing is, when the woman basically, I did a reporting to the police. The police just said this is an acting theft. So therefore, because he was next to your car, it's an acting theft, and then she was intended to walk away until people invent, and basically, she woman basically, otherwise, it's an acting theft.
Yes, so usually there is more than one thing happening at the same time. And your legal rights are more than just the civil rights that you have under these acts. And this is not, this piece of legislation is not criminal, it's civil.
好的，那在这个过程当中呢，我们可能会遇到这个，当时呢，这个 June 他的做法非常正确，在发生这种情况的时候呢，首先呢，这个还是有捍卫自己，或者是身边的人呢，有人出来这个帮助他、支持他，并且说，这种行为是不是属于有点这个种族歧视的这种不好的行为？那当时呢，你也感到了这样的支持。然后呢，这个当时他拿手机的这个行为呢，June去报告警方的时候，警方的解释说这是一个这个偷盗的一个行为。
So please, if
you're
you're
sorry,
sorry.
这个偷盗的行为。但是呢，就是在发生这些事情的时候呢，它可能会涉及到多种不同的这个法律层面，比方说它有刑法还有民法的这两方面。
对。This is only civil, so these laws cannot protect you. If you're in danger, call the police and call 000 and please be safe.
想强调的是呢，这类法律呢，它是属于非刑法的，所以说没有在发生危急情况时候对大家的保护的这种作用。所以说大家如果出现了这种紧急情况的时候呢，首先报警，要确保安全，这是第一步。
对。And when you got off on your station, and you were heading towards your husband, you were being stalked. Yeah? So that's a stalker, someone following you. When you move fast, he moves fast. When you move slow, he moves slow. That's a stalker. Yeah. That's right. Not really about racial or... It could be that he's targeting you because of your race, but also it could be a person that's exhibiting bad behavior.
然后之后这个又会出现他June 去老公接她的地方的时候，出现这种尾随她的这种行为。这种行为呢，它可能算是这个刑法的范围，不属于种族歧视，它也有可能是因为你是这个亚洲人的原因。但是呢，就是要注意这其中它的这种在不同法律类别上的划分。
So I am just giving you some cases where people have taken matters further and have gone and complained to the various bodies that are available, and each state will have their own bodies. So all of Australia, all states and territories in Australia have legislated for this matters. Judy mentioned a case about a real estate agent. New South Wales had a similar case, and the person was was discriminated and vilified because of his colour, and he was awarded $2,000 in that case. So I'm just giving you examples of when people take their cases to bodies and complain, whether they do it by way of conciliation and agreement, and thank you, Judy, for your good work in the commission, and or they take it to federal court. So you have to, there's civil rights. You've got rights that you can issue proceedings and take that person to court. And in the federal court, I give you some examples here about how much people have obtained in terms of monetary compensation.
好的，因为在这个各州各领地呢，都有自己相应的对于种族歧视的法律以及相关的这个执法机构。那么刚才呢，这个 Judy 也给我们分享了这个房屋中介的这个事情。然后在新州呢，之前也有人经历种族歧视或者种族憎恶，然后最后被赔了这个2000块的这样的一些赔偿金。那么接下来呢，这边不管是通过这个叫做协商，或者是上联邦法院的方式呢，都有这一些相应的渠道。然后这里给大家列举了一些在联邦法院上面最后的判决以及赔偿金额。
If anyone's interested, let me know later. I'm running out of time. But just very quickly, I just wanted to say that a lot of this is monetary compensation. Doesn't compensate for the fear that June had at the time in that moment. It doesn't compensate for her possible post-traumatic stress syndrome after the event. So I'll hand over to Queenie in relation to some of the methods that you can have for coping.
好的，那这个时间可能有点不太够，如果大家想了解更多详情呢，事后可以过来找我要信息。然后呢，很多这样子的赔偿呢，它都是这个赔偿金，但是呢，它可能会对于当时你的这种感受上面没有怎么样的一种道歉或者赔偿，而且可能会对这个之后产生的这种灾难性事件的应激反应的这些后续呢，它也没有办法。那接下来的话是 ，Yes。
We were going to do some scenarios, but I think June has already covered that. So I think that's been a really good example. And thank you, Amelia, for your comments as well. So
Lily,
I think
Lily, before you head off, I'm mindful of time, but I also know that there's some interest on the Zoom chat. So someone asked, how do you resolve matters legally when you didn't get the name or the identity of the perpetrator?
Right.
这边 Zoom 问了一个问题，就是在没有知道对方肇事者姓名和他的身份的情况下，如何来确保维护自己的法律权益。
And I know it pushes time out, but I think we'll be fine.
I will. I'll cover it on a story as well that I have. So the answer is very difficult because this is a civil action. So with a civil action, you have to have a plaintiff and a defendant, a victim and an accused. So you've got to get a name of someone. Otherwise, how are you going to take some action legally against that person? That's exactly right. So I was going to suggest, June, if ever you got into that situation again, video that person, video the scene, ask questions if you can, if you're safe. Try and confront the perpetrator and say, what's your name, why are you saying this? Obviously, if they're drunk, then it's not going to have a meaningful conversation, but you should get some information about it. I'll tell a little story. My daughter isn't here at the moment, but she attended a school formal, and some kids came up to her and tried to say Ching and Chong and make names about their surnames. And I researched the federal court case and told her Ching and Chong was worth $2,000. But in the federal court. But she needed to know I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of us do not take it further. The young people today tell me that the trolling in social media is worse than the accusing the person of wrongdoing. So, there's a lot of other communications that come in. But to come back to that question, you need to have a name. So in our case, we didn't know who that boy was. We had to make queries, we had to find out. Luckily, it was a closed function, so we knew who was attending. So, there are ways of finding out later on who that person who exhibited that bad behavior was.
像这个问题快速来回答的话呢，就是那如果没有名字的话，那就没有办法，因为这是属于民事法的范畴。在民事法的时候，必须得要有原告的信息，还有这个被告信息，这个被诉人的信息以及受害者的信息。那所以说，一个比较好的方法呢，可能就是这个通过用录像的这种方式，或者是如果是在一个安全的环境下呢，来问他的一些问题，比方说你叫什么名字，为什么这样对我做？但是如果要是醉汉的话呢，可能就不要这样做了。另外的话呢，就是我个人的一个经历，就是我们去参加孩子的他们学校的一个这个有名册的一个活动，然后呢，当时就有其他的孩子，男孩跑来这个用这种不友好的这种绰号、称号，有这种种族意味的称号来跟我女儿讲话。当时我就跟女儿开玩笑说：“哦，这个是有案子的，因为你要是喊这个青冲这样子的话呢，可能他的这个罚款金额就是2000。”然后而且呢，后来呢现在也有越来越多的这种在社交媒体上面的这种谩骂行为，这方面呢是一个问题。然后但最后呢，因为就说到我们刚才那件事情的话，因为属于这个有名册的这样的一个活动呢，所以说最后呢，我们也是找到了是谁说这样子的话。所以说呢，有的时候呢，就是说看是什么样的情况，对于这样子的这个姓名，也是有办法找到的。当然，也可能大多数人呢，也就这个事情也就算了，也就不继续追索。
谢谢 Bruce 你说的东西是我不全想说的东西。谢谢。All right. Thank you. And Queenie, if you can come up. My daughter suffered some emotional trauma, and the things that Queenie will explain now are things that actually will help people like my daughter.
对，接下来请这个吴博士来介绍一下心理的自我保护。
Hi everyone, my name is Queenie. I'm a clinical psychologist. I think last time I tried to speak both Chinese and English, I got myself confused and kind of wasted a lot of time. So today I'm just going to stick with English, and Bruce will help me. If I can, sometimes maybe I'll just jump in with some Chinese,
sure.
Because I feel like I can. So I want to speak Chinese, but then.
好的，这个我是这个叫 Queenie 吴，然后呢是专门做临床心理咨询的，这方面也有多年的这个工作经验。然后待会儿的话，可能我会用中文介绍一些内容，可能也需要这个翻译。
It just disappeared my slides. Okay, I'll just continue maybe. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from China, and I came here as an international student. Sorry, it's a bit far. Oh, okay.
这个我也是从中国来，然后刚来的时候呢，来这边读书。
Okay. Oh, good. So I'll just leave that here. Okay. And I've been working in the area of clinical psychology for the past decade. So throughout the years, my experience including forensic psychology, public mental health, private mental health sectors, and in the last about 10 years, it's in the youth mental health, so between 12 and 25 years old. I would say 99% of the clientele I saw during that time was Australians, Caucasians. I think really reaching 1%, that's from the Asian minority groups. So that puzzled me a lot. So
过去的这个我在做临床的这个心理咨询以及健康这方面呢，已经有10年的工作经验。然后呢，从事的领域包括法务、临床心理咨询、公共领域以及私人领域。我的客户，我的这个专攻方向呢是属于这个青少年，比方说12岁到25岁这个阶段的。然后我发现一个很有意思的现象，就是几乎99%的客户呢，全部都是属于这个澳洲本地人。然后其中像这种其他族裔的或者华裔背景的，几乎只占1%。这个呢，对我来说是一个很大的一个疑问。
So I thought to myself, is this like immune? So is the Asians immune to mental health issues? Or there's some bigger, deeper issues there? So that's why in 2019 I founded Mindspace Consulting. That's a specialized bilingual psychology service. We're based in Melbourne. So I would say majority of clients are now Asian Australians, international students. I think we see more and more prevalent of mental health issues and concerns experienced by young generation as well as older migrants populations.
然后呢，我就想，那是不是因为我们华人都没有心理问题，在这个问题上都免疫了，或者说实际上是有更大的这个隐性的一些我们看不到的地方呢？因此，我在2019年就成立了一家自己的这个咨询机构，叫思维心理。然后在那之后呢，终于就发现确实有很多的留学生也好，有亚洲背景的人也好，包括这个年轻人、老的移民都有这样子的实际上的心理的需求。
So I'm very honored to be here today to share my knowledge about mental health and racism. So first of all, just a definition of what's mental health. So according to WHO, it's a state of well-being in which an individual realizes their own ability, can cope with normal stresses of life, can function productively, and is able to make a contribution to their communities.
然后呢，这个接下来给大家介绍一下这个什么叫心理健康，精神健康，还有这个种族主义。那根据世界卫生组织的定义呢，就是说一个人能够在一个综合健康的环境下，对于正常的压力，较好的承受，并且可以在社会环境中正常的发挥自己功能，这种情况属于精神健康 OK。
So in psychology, mainly we'll talk about, this is all about how we think, feel, and behave. So these core things here.
那么在心理学里面来讲的话呢，就是自己的想法、感受和自己做出来的行为。
It involves in balancing life responsibilities, activities, and also the effort to achieve psychological flexibility, which we call resilience.
这个要不您说一下？
我来解释一下。OK， 就是我们怎么样去维持、保证生活中的一些责任、一些生活中的一些任务、一些行为，能够达到心理上的一种灵活性。就是生活中会有很多不利的事情或者一些挫折，我们怎么样去认识它？怎么样去了解自己有哪些能力可以去克服它？
好，下一个我继续。
OK. And everybody has some risk of developing a mental health. And that data shows, I think that's pretty old data, just before COVID, there's 2 in 5 Australians will experience anxiety and depression at some point in their lives.
这个呢，就是说像心理问题的话，人人都会经历。那这个幻灯片上的数据呢，已经比较老了，它这个是疫情前的了。上面说的是澳洲每5个人当中就有2个会有这样的经历，但实际上比例应该更高。
I think during COVID, the mental health issue amplified because we actually become more aware, which is really good things. And then there's more and more people start accessing help and support in terms of mental health.
而且呢，随着这个疫情各种封城、各种 这样的对日常生活的这种影响，这个心理健康这一点上呢，也得到了重视，而且越来越扩大。可能这一个很大的原因呢，是因为第一，大家的意识得到增强；第二呢，大家也开始更多的寻求这方面的专业的帮助。
So now come to mental health effects of racism. I think with June's case, that really is a fantastic case to explain the psychological impact of racism. It's not just for you, it's around everyone sitting here. I think how many of you, after hearing June's case, felt angry and frustrated? Raise your hands.
对，这个刚才就听到 June 的这个分享，觉得也非常愤怒的人请举手。
So that's what we said, the psychological impact of racism. It's not only for the person who directly experiences it, it's as well as the wider minority communities. So we also experience this trauma vicariously through different channels.
然后呢，这个我们在这个心理咨询的这个领域，我们管它叫做间接伤害。这种间接伤害就是当别人讲述自己的某种情感上的感受的时候，自己的这个感受呢也感受到这种感受的，它这是一种间接伤害的行为，所以说大家都会受到影响。
Yep. So for the individuals who experience directly, so most of us, we direct the acute reactions to the traumas. So that includes a lot of flashbacks, nightmares, paranoias, negative thinkings, unable to sleep, reduced appetite, loss of concentrations, start forgetting things, unable to function, and start social withdrawing from people. So that's a set of symptoms. Sometimes it can develop a PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorders.
那么像这个个人当接受到了这种快速的程度比较严重的这种精神创伤的时候，可能会产生一系列的之后的反应。你比方说这个晚上睡不着觉，或者是精神紧张，突然一下子闪现这种之前的事件，然后这个没有胃口吃饭，睡不着觉，健忘。可能开始变得不想跟人进行社交互动，然后呢，如果得不到有效的控制的话呢，可能之后就变成了这个叫做精神创伤之后的应激反应。
And also for the wider communities, when we experience it vicariously, we also develop a set of symptoms and stress reactions to that, as well losing confidence in the core value of Australian multiculturalism. As I think June mentioned, that this is a home where we choose, but we still experience this. Why? How come? Is the government or people doing anything about this? That's start kicking in.
对，而且呢，这样子的一些状况呢，可能会对这个少数民族的这种在澳的群体的更广泛的这个人群呢，受到相应的这个影响，或者也产生某种这种临床上的症状，因为它可能会影响到我们作为一个这个少数民族群体的这个对多元文化社会的一个自信。我们选择来这里移居到澳大利亚作为我们的新家，那为什么还会有这样子的一些状况？政府它又在做什么
？And have the increased sense of isolations.
会感觉到这个越来越受孤立。
And eventually develop anxiety, depressions, substance abuse like alcohol, drugs use, and self-harming, and sometimes even psychosis.
然后可能会这个最终呢导致这种孤立导致出现这种焦虑、抑郁或者是这个自残，然后甚至于是一些成瘾的，比方说酗酒、用毒品，甚至于这个有自杀倾向，甚至于变成这个有这种精神这方面的这个精神病。
And I wrote it here. It wasn't in my slides, but I was just responding to Joan's case, and also it involved, in addition to that racial-based trauma reactions, we're also going through a grief loss periods when we experience that racism.
Sorry.
Grief and loss.
来，您说一下。
OK， 所以就刚才 June 说的这个例子里面，除了我们会对一些创伤的一些应激性的反应之外，我们还可能会通过一些grief and loss 应该是
什么 grief loss
grief and loss 失去
grief of loss 就是这个可能是一种失去感的这样的一种难过的这种情绪。
Yes, so it's just a process that we're going through 5 steps. So first is you're going to, in that very initial shock, disbelief stage.
对，首先它这个是会经历5个阶段。第一开始呢是还没有接受这个现实。
And then you're going to that anger. So
然后呢
that's
开始
significant
愤怒。
frustrations. Yep. And third is you start negotiate, start contemplating what's going on, why this is happening, and you're trying to gather informations and things like that.
然后就开始想，这是一种，为什么会发生这样的状况？然后就开始这个查询资料，说这为什么会有这种感觉？
And the fourth step usually is a depression because it actually happened and it happened to us. And we can't stop that, we can't forget about that, and we're going through that deeper depression about why, how could I get out of this?
然后呢，就开始进入这个抑郁，并且呢进行这种深化，而且就是在想自己为什么会发生这样的事情，自己怎样从这里头走出来。
I think the last step is just acceptance. So that's where we work together to build a resilience. Is how I can accept what happened and how I overcome this and becoming a more stronger or more resilient out of this action.
然后最后呢，就是说终于可以接受这个现实，也就是我们的这个坚韧的这种坚韧性被建立的那一瞬间，就终于接受了，找到解决方法。
So I don't have time to go into details about this, but this is a snapshot of how you prioritize your mental health. I put in a pie chart. So you do need to keep a balanced daily routines. So exercises, sleep, eatings, I know you might not feel like it, but you still have to put in your best effort trying to keep everything stable. So that's very important. Maintaining a hopeful outlook, that's about perspectives, how we can keep positive about things, looking at the positive side of things, looking at the positive aspects of life. Practice mindfulness, that's what the Damien Shifu will taught us about how you can incorporate mindfulness into everyday daily things. And then acknowledge the importance of your relationships with your friends, families, and your communities. Coming here to these seminars is really a good way to connect with your communities and also knows things do happen. A lot of us experience similar things, and to be able to talk about it, it can be incredibly validating.
那么这个呢是一个挺好的一个方法，但是呢可能没有时间很详细的去介绍了。简单来说呢，这6大方法呢是这个保持自己心理健康的一个很重要的方式。第一个呢就是说每一天的这个生活的这个起居，它要是这个工作生活啊要保持一个平衡，然后呢经常要想找一个时间专门来让自己呢对这个未来要有一个良好的期望，要做这样一件事情。然后第3个呢就是说如何来做一些正念的这种练习，这个呢 Damien 待会儿给我们会有介绍。然后呢就是说如何我们看问题的时候不能只从一个角度看，因为自己有的时候一个方向看就把问题看死了，不同的方向看呢反而这个路就出来了。然后下一个呢就是对于这个生活当中生命当中，因为我们人是群居社会，你肯定生出来就不是一个人，那肯定身边有很多重要的这个关系，然后来思考自己跟自己身边重要的这些人之间的这种关系，也会对自己带来这个心理健康的帮助。最后呢就是说改变是永恒不变的一个主题，所以说呢学会接受改变呢也会更好的有一个心态。
Yeah, I think in that one is understanding what's in your control, what's not in your control. So thinking of if we're focusing on the things that's out of our control, we feel more stressed and overwhelmed about our aspects of life.
而且呢这个说到这个感觉有一种掌控感，反而有很多时候呢是来自己焦虑的一个源头。有的时候呢你觉得不把这种控制欲望给它放下了以后，突然一下人就轻松。
Okay, so I definitely don't have time to go through this, but I put it there. So basically, I've kind of just gone through that a bit. So reach out, talk about it, find the people that you trust, and they can validate your feelings, and get the support within your community. Really embrace your ethnicities, and listen to others when they reach out to you as well. So it's vice versa type of things. So if you can talk about it, you start the internal experience of healing, recovering, because if you need any professional support, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for it. Everyone's journey is different. Just because you need additional support doesn't mean that you're weak. Doesn't mean that there's anything that you're lacking that you didn't have, other people might have.
好的，这个另外呢，这个详细内容进不去了。关键点呢，就是说，如果心里有问题，心里感觉有困扰的时候呢，要跟人说，要说出来。 然后要让其他人来来跟你给一些回复，让你觉得自己的感受被接受到。而且呢，这个说出来的过程呢，实际上就是一个心理健康恢复的一个过程。所以说不应该觉得哎呀自己是不是跟别人不一样，自己有什么毛病，或者说自己说出来是不是表示自己软弱，不是这样子的。说出来呢，实际上是可以让自己变得更强的一个最重要的方法。
Okay, I'll pass the floor. Yes.
First, I would like to thanks for everyone. Okay, I would like to thanks for everyone. The presentation is fantastic. The reason I share my experience, I would like to use this platform to let people know the racist, the safety, the concern. It is there. It's real, because my personal the experience I never expected will happen to me. Right? I've been here for 30 years, and there was in 1996 and 1998 when Pauline Hanson was talking about the discrimination as started with. I had that experience, right? And a group of people in the railway station said, "Asian, get out." This time, and I found that the second time, they're such strong and it was targeted. I know they had lots of excuses because of the pandemic and etc. But I think with the Chinese community has to be aware, it's awareness. Secondly, I've spoken out, not because just only for my personal, possibly I want to share the experience, but I just wanted to lots of people maybe experience. And when I've spoken to some people, my friend, they said, we have some experience like yours, but we don't want to report it, or we don't want to let the people know. That's why the report was done there. Right? People shy out, and people just think if you want to speak it out and people point to you. I can be a risk, and people will say why you want to say that, right? So there's some things, I just think I want to encourage people, even slightly you feel discriminated, talking about, share about it, share with other communities, because they're not just only alone. We're talking about minority people with ethnic background. That's the lady from, if it's an Italian background, was 70 years ago and has been here. I think it's lots of people, Jewish communities are all Muslims, right? If it's the now continue, the China and the Chinese coming out, always appointed, more and more will be targeted. That is the thing. So people has awareness and have alert. Also, the Chinese community has gathering together what is next, the procedures. I do appreciate that Judy was, and represent basically, VMC. Personally, I am ISC. I'm the Victorian Multicultural Commission and East Region, actually, that's the member for council, the advice council. So I do. I work a lot for the migrant communities, particularly women's issues, right? And I do lots of research also. I'm the community leader as well. I'm the president of the different things. So the things I'm talking about is we're awareness, we're careful, and also we're connected together and raise the voice. I do appreciate that basically, and I think as we're talking about the legal, and what things is civil, what is criminal, how we can protect ourselves. But if in a public arena, myself, I did ring the equal opportunity. I ring them. They said, if you don't have a personal name, and we cannot do anything about it, as you say, because you have the cannot against the one person. But how we can stop that? And that things is the Chinese community, we can do something. We can do it, particularly young people. You're overseas, you're coming here to study, you may target it in future. So I think what we can do, that's how I want to raise the voice. But anyway, thanks. Yeah, thanks to this opportunity, thanks for listening.
谢谢大家给的这次机会。那June 刚才也分享说，之所以分享自己的经历呢，是因为想告诉大家，这个种族歧视行为就发生在我们的身边，它是真实存在的。那么呢，从这个30多年前，1996年那个时候，当时有这个种族歧视最激烈的那个 Pauline Hanson 那个时候，所鼓扰的这样的那个时候的一个趋势。到现在我可以感觉到疫情后的这个第二股这样的一个种族歧视的一个 上升的一个恶劣趋势。大家开始来指责说是其他国家的人怎么样。我觉得这个我们作为华人群体，海外华人群体，一定要有这样子的一个意识，这个事情就真真实实的发生在我们的身边。我们我再次鼓励更多的人呢，如果即便是感受到一点点这样子的这种种族歧视的问题，一定要说出来，因为你只有多说出来，这个才能把它变成一股力量，才能够对它造成这样的改变。然后我们墨尔本除了华人群体以外，不管是犹太人也好，穆斯林也好，他们也都同样的面临这样子的问题。但是呢，我们也应该就作为华人群体团结在一起。然后我本人呢，实际上是在维多利亚州的东区的公平机会与多元文化委员会这边担任相应的职务。然后呢，我自己觉得我们应该团结起来，发出自己的声音。虽然刚才说到了不管是民法、刑法，没有名字，可能找不到他，也没有办法起诉。但是没有名字，我们也应该说出来。特别是我们应该寄希望于我们华人的下一代年轻人，来帮助我们在这个方面，发出我们的声音，做出这样的改变。
Thanks, Bruce. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much, Bruce, for translating. My name is Sifu Damien from Empower Tactical. Today I'm going to be talking to you about practical ways of combating racism. Racism is not okay. Thank you for all the panelists for speaking before in all their trades. And sorry, Bruce.
好的，大家好，我的名字是 Damien， 然后呢是 Empower Technical。接下来给大家介绍一些关于抵抗种族主义的一些实际有用的方法，也非常感谢刚才各位嘉宾的介绍。
Guys, first of all, June, and thank you for everyone for sharing your stories, and I feel sorry for what you have been through. But I'd like to share little tips of what I do. Is anyone here in the crowd parents who has kids at home? Does anyone have any children?
家里有孩子的请举个手。
Yes, you do. Okay, great. Does anyone have any parents that you live with?
一起跟爸爸妈妈一起住的。
Great.
请举手。
Can I ask everyone to stand up, please?
大家要不这样，我们站起来。
We are going to dance. Thank you very much for everyone to standing up. Again, everyone, welcome. For those who's on Zoom, I welcome everyone to stand up if you're at home right now.
然后呢，各位通过视频观看的也可以伸伸筋骨，站起来拉伸一下。
Practical ways of combating racism start within us. The things that we do every day to believe that we can do something about it.
最实际的这样的一个做法呢，就是每一天你相信自己能够做什么事情的自信的感觉。
So, I teach sometimes around up to 4,000 to 5,000 kids per week, online or face to face.
那我每周的话呢，可能给4000、5000名的孩子，不管是面授还是通过网络的方式来教授这种方法。
And I'm a father of 2 beautiful boys, and there's no way that I can kindly ask them right now to stand up like you did for all of me. So thank you so much.
然后我有2个儿子，现在我是毫无办法让他们2个像大家这样站得这么的整齐笔直。
What works for me is what I think will work for everyone to do every morning just before brushing your teeth and looking at yourself in the mirror.
然后对我来说有用的一个方法，我也希望大家可以尝试，就是每天早上起来在漱口的时候，镜子里头看着自己。
So after you brush your teeth, I'd like you to do this.
然后你就漱完口以后做这件事情。
Looking at the mirror sideways.
然后侧着看镜子。
Enough! So,
这个就不用翻译了，大家估计明白了。
So, what I'd like everyone to do is, with a smile on your face right now, I'd like everyone to do this, because everyone who's a parent in this room knows that one stage in your life, you had to do this. And anyone who's a child or children, obviously, of your parents, you knew that your parents at one stage had to tell you off all your principle.
对，这个呢，就是刚才大家完了之后的微笑特别的有力量，然后这个也是希望大家可以自己在家里尝试的这样的一件事情，因为总有一刻在人生中的一刻，你会突然一下子说够了。
On count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go! Good job, guys. Give yourself a clap. Give yourself a clap. You can all sit down. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for doing this. So, what I'd like to explain today is this team of panelists has been put in place for you to provide you a toolkit. A toolkit for not only for those that's been through racism, but to prevent this from happening in the future. It's been going on for over 70 years, for more than that, and we are forever, and we're trying to make sure that it's not going to last forever. And a way to do this is for the minority, talking about the research that Isabel has spent a lot of time doing, which obviously it doesn't end, because we all have children, new generation, and would like to provide a toolkit so we can target the younger generation to be able to stop racism, and the older generation to be able to do something about it.
然后呢，这个非常感谢大家刚才来参加这样的活动，也都非常的起劲。然后我们在这个过程当中呢，也是各位嘉宾，希望来给大家提供各种各样的方式，来不仅帮助现代以及我们下一代人来学会如何捍卫自己的权利，以争取来结束这个已经经历了70年的这样子的一个种族歧视。然后呢，也作为这个少数群体呢，经常的来阐述这方面的这种道理以及方式，帮助我们的青年人能够更好的应对未来的各种挑战，而不仅仅是种族歧视。
Thank you, Bruce. So, starting out from the first point that we have, standing up for oneself, is what you've done. The first thing that you do every morning is you have to be proud of the person that you are, and you have to put a stop to it. Whether it is to do with discrimination, it's to do with that you don't want to go to work, but you have to shake yourself up because you have to work to provide to your family and your loved ones, or to study so you can be successful young men and women in the world that we live in. So, what I'd like to give everyone today, and everyone who's listening on Zoom, is I'd like to give you a vehicle, a car, that you're going to take with the tool and a toolkit that you're going to be able to use during that journey, which is providing you all the toolkits that's required to prevent racism from happening to you, and also if it happened to you, on how you can recover from there.
然后呢，所以说我希望大家能每天在起床的时候站在镜子面前，首先要为自己在镜子面前的自己感到自豪。然后呢，因为可能不管是自己经历过了什么种族歧视也好，或者是马上要去上班，因为要养家糊口，或者是要好好学习，要达到自己的目标，将后来为世界做贡献也好，要对自己感到自豪，要有责任心、责任感去完成面对自己一个自豪的自己。然后我希望呢，也是通过打一个比喻的方式，给大家一辆这样的载具或者是车辆，并且呢，在这个车里坐在里边，有我们提供的各种的这种方式方法，来帮助您在这个人生的这一场一定会碰到各种风浪的这样的旅程当中，来有自信的、积极的应对这些问题。
Thank you, Bruce. So, first of all, June, I'd like to congratulate you because you're already driving that car at the moment. For what happened to you, which we're going to take it offline a little bit further on, the different toolkits that can be useful for yourself, is awareness. Awareness is very important. It helps you at work, it helps you when you're at home, it helps you when you're cooking, when you're boiling something, you want to make sure that you don't tip over the boiling water. So awareness is very important for pre-cues, to prevent something from happening, and also for you to be aware that racism exists. So the vehicle that I'd like to provide you is a toolkit for you to understand that you have to be aware of your surrounding, which is very important. And that will take you to a journey, not only to prevent racism from happening again, but for you to be a better version of yourself, to stand up for oneself.
然后呢，June，祝贺你，因为你其实已经在这辆车辆里头了。然后呢，我们也是通过在这个车辆里的这个工具，也就方法之一呢，就是要建立起这样一个意识，因为在任何的可能出现的危险来临之前，如果有这个意识，就好比是你在做饭的时候，旁边烧着水，虽然你没有在想，但是你知道到了那个点，突然你就起身去把这个水给关掉了。所以说这样子的一个意识，知道可能有这样子的一个潜在的威胁，也就会不断的来给自己动力，来预防这样的事件的发生。所以说第一个要点是意识。
Thank you, Bruce. So the vehicle that we've put in place is, first of all, you need to know your rights. You need to be prepared. You need to understand your rights. That's why we have these wonderful panelists there today to share this story for you to know that they know what they're talking about. And also, in depth is for you to understand that your rights, your legal rights, and also from Dr. Judy Tang, who's talking about the VMC, the Victorian rights, that you are in Victoria, you need to know what you're allowed to do in terms of legal aspect. If something was to happen to you, if something happened to you, it's important to know so. So when you do know, you will know what you need to do after. Like we all say for some of the university students that we have there, knowledge is power.
然后呢，这个在第二个重点呢，就是知道自己能有哪一些方式方法，也就是权益，自己的法律权益如何来应对这些问题，以做好这个这样子的应对准备。那就像这个 Judy 刚才介绍的，维多利亚州公平机会与人权委员会的这些方式和方法，然后，那么在发生的时候呢，马上就意识到自己有这样的方式方法，所以说它是从这个意识到知道怎么做，它是一整套的体系，大家已经这个武装好了自我。
Thank you. And I'd like to add, in terms of that vehicle that we provide you guys, the toolkits that are useful is practical ways to combating racism and also for you to know what to do and what state of mind you have to be able to make the decision. It's so easy for someone to say call 000 or call a lawyer after or call a psychologist to be able to talk to someone. It's important for you to know how can you be in that state of mind. And that's what I will be doing into the workshop next week. And we're going to have another one where we can find practical ways for you to be able to have your foot down in the morning and stand up for yourself, to have a positive mindset, to be able to utilize the tools that's been provided to you to take a stand against racism.
然后呢，就是说要保持这样子的一种这种潜在的一种精神状态、思维状态，怎么样去保持？因为你说有的时候出现问题的时候，你要马上知道去打这个报警310的电话，或者是应该怎么做？有可能这个到了那个点上做不出来，那我们怎样训练自己，让自己可以时时刻刻的进入这样一种潜意识的这种捍卫自我权益的状态？那么在下一周的我的这个实用技巧的这个研讨会上面呢，会给大家具体的介绍，希望能够帮助到大家每天早上起来能够跺脚捍卫自己的权利，为自己感到自豪。
Thank you, Bruce. I guess I'm running out of time. I could be talking forever, but I'd like to let you know that I've been a martial art instructor for a very long time, and I utilize the martial arts principle. I was talking to a gentleman before, and he was mentioning to me that the art of Chinese culture is amazing. I wish someone will talk to me on the street and say, hey, look, he's Chinese, because I feel proud of it. I feel proud because I was idolizing Bruce Lee growing up as a young man. And someone said, described it, this gentleman at the front was saying he had goosebumps when he was in China and going to watch he was walking through a museum, that's it, in Foshan, the Ip Man. And it's something that we should be proud of our culture. We should be proud of where we stand. We should be proud of where we come from. But it's important, it's not your fault that you haven't been through that goosebumps experience where you feel proud of where you come from and the attributes that the knowledge of the culture has to offer. And that's what we would like for you to discover, all these beautiful attributes that this culture has to offer. I love dumplings. I love kung fu. And it's important for us to know what do we have to be able to stand for oneself. And that's that vehicle that we would like to provide all of you to be able to stand up in any type of journey that you are, whether you've been affected for racism, which we are very truly sorry for. And if you haven't, on how to prevent for this to happen in the future. And I look forward to seeing you all next week in our workshop, which is going to be at the same time, where we're going to run through some practical ways to be able to stand up for yourself. Guys, thank you so much for being here today and for being strong-willed to take the first step for attending this seminar. I will pass on the microphone to Dr. Judy Tang right now. Thank you.
这个谢谢大家，我也给大家介绍一下自己。然后呢，我自己呢也是这个有多年的学习中国武术，然后呢，我的生活的这种很多的理念呢，也是从这个中国武术的这个精华的原则当中来的。而且呢，我是特别的这个为中国文化感到自豪。如果街上我看到了这个有那个什么样的中国文化舞狮子等等的话呢，会感到特别的自豪。然后呢，我个人呢也是十分崇拜李小龙，从小呢他是我的偶像。 之前呢也刚才跟人聊天的时候说到，他们去到这个中国佛山那边，看到了有一些这种文化的这一些活动啊，会让人起鸡皮疙瘩的这种兴奋感。也希望大家呢能够仔细的去体会如何让自己因为自己的中华文化而起这种鸡皮疙瘩的这种感觉。我喜欢吃饺子，我也喜欢这个中国功夫。我希望通过我们的这个活动里的知识，还有我们会教的这一些实用的技巧，来给大家这样的一辆武装的车辆，帮助大家学会如何来避免有意识的防止种族歧视对自己的这个影响。那么也希望在下周与大家在同一个时间的研讨会上相见。华人当自强。
Thank you. Before we start, I just noticed, because I was watching the Zoom video, that Bruce you're hiding behind the sign. Do you want to just come out so people can see you and you can say hello to...
Hello!
It's a real person, Bruce, so thank you, Bruce. I know there's been a question on the Zoom chat, and I thought what we might do is we might address that at the end when we've got a panel, because it's actually a really good question, and I'll read it really quickly now before I get onto my stuff.
这个我刚才看到 Zoom 上面有一个问题呢，要不我们待会儿在最后的时候解决，因为这个问题问得特别好，有点长。
Okay, so here goes. On the topic of awareness and preparedness, do you have any resources on how to respond to casual racism? Like, what can you say? For example, I've had someone tell me that they can't be racist because their wife, husband, friend is Asian and they love Chinese culture.
这个问题呢就是说，怎么样来建立刚才说到的这个意识和这个一个准备的一个状态。因为呢，就是有的时候呢，大家可能会在生活当中出现这种感觉，好像是特别就是不经意的出现这样的状况。你比方说有一个朋友的他白人的太太可能是华人的这种情况，可能说了这种什么时候话的时候，那应该怎么样来回应呢？
Okay. I knew this was wrong and problematic, but I couldn't articulate why and felt powerless in the moment. Is there a guide on how to reply to things like, that's reverse racism? I can't be racist because I'm a good person. I don't see color and I treat everyone the same.
Sorry, can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, I'll give it to you. And I'll finish up. So all these statements perpetuate racism and doesn't address the problem at all.
Oh yeah, that's helpful. 是这样子的，这个有人跟我讲啊，一个人说，我们的这个行为不是种族歧视行为，因为自己的这个老婆、先生、朋友都是华人，而且呢，我们也喜欢中国文化。但是呢，我觉得这一点呢还是有问题，因为但在这个过程当中，我觉得还是觉得不太对，但是又不知道怎么说。那么就想了解一下，像接下来他说的一些话，我们怎么样来回应？这是一种反向的这个种族主义的行为。Are you trying to say that you are accusing other people of racism? So you
reverse
actually
racism is a misinformation. It's a misnomer, but people are trying to say it's I'm being racist to a white person. Let's just say. So that's reverse racism.
就是说，他可能会这种时候呢来说，实际上你说他种族歧视，你实际上是在说你让他觉得他对你种族歧视的人，对他种族歧视的方式。
Yeah, reverse racism is probably a little bit too complex for this forum, but definitely happy to chat more about it. Because that will be another whole workshop series in itself. But the other tips and the other statements.
然后另外一个就是说，这个我是个好人，所以说我肯定就不会是有一个种族歧视的人。然后呢，我看大家都是一样的，没有看出来肤色上有什么区别，我对待大家都是一样的。
So the other statements, I think we might be able to share some of our ways around it. But we will get to that once I finish up my support system stuff.
Sorry, I wasn't listening to what you're saying. Sorry. Sorry about that.
We'll get to the rest of the statements. I think we will have something to share on tips. But I'll finish first.
好的，这个到时候的话会继续跟大家分享，然后这边的话我把剩下的这一点内容讲完。
And I promise to be quick. Okay. So let's see, we know what race, we know it's bad. The Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission.
好，这个机构名称维州公平机会及人权委员会。
I will give you contact details for them later. They are a commission that accepts any reports or information around experience of racial discrimination and any other form of discrimination, really.
这家机构的话呢，是专门来可以供大家报告任何类型的有这种种族歧视的这种不正确行为的这样的一个政府机构。待会儿呢会给大家提供联系方式。
They also have an inquiry service and interpreters available on hand.
然后也提供一个问讯服务，并且提供口译服务。
So don't feel like if you don't speak English as well that you can't contact them. Definitely do. They'll make sure they'll find the right interpreter, translator to have that conversation with you.
所以说呢，这个如果语言有障碍的话呢，不用担心，这边打个电话过去呢，他们也可以提供口译的支持。
So last statement here is they don't give legal advice, but they can help you decide what action you can take.
然后呢，可以给大家提供一些don't provide legal advice, right?
They don't provide legal advice, but they can give you recommendations where to from here.
对，这个虽然它不提供任何的这个法律意见，但是它可以提供就是说进一步的帮助支持，在哪里有相关的资源。
Legal advice, you go to Lily.
找这个 Lily 如果需要法律意见。
Alright. So we've mentioned this a few times, including June mentioning why it is so important to make a complaint. It's important because you're telling it's not okay for the person to discriminate.
这个重要性在哪儿呢？为什么要把这样的事儿报上去呢？因为你报上去的这一个瞬间，实际上不管是直接还是间接的，都是在跟这个对方说你的这个行为是错误的。
And you also may stop that person or other people from doing it to others.
而且你像这样做的话，可能就会导致之后敢这么做的人变少。
So we all understand there has been quite an increase in racism during COVID-19, and again, that is not okay.
疫情期间呢，也在这个种族歧视的问题里还是变严重了，但是呢，这都是不可接受的。
And we talked about some avenues there. So we talked about talking to Lily, people like Lily in the legal arena for legal advice on where to from there. We also mentioned that if your safety is, how would you say? If you're not feeling safe, go to the police. You definitely go to the police or call 000 in another instance. And where I am now mentioning now is when you are, and it is safe to do so, in the area of civil law, contacting the Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission.
然后呢，刚才这个 Lily 这边也说了，我们可以通过法律的这个方式处理问题，但是呢，也就是记住，在如果人身出现安全的时候呢，直接是通过这个刑法体系报警，然后呢，在这个民法体系下呢，有合适的这种信息的情况下，也可以联系我们的维多利亚州公平机会及人权委员会。
I see some people taking photos, so just let me know if you need me to go back to a slide.
我看有人在拍照，这个如果需要我们返回到上一页，请跟我们说。
So as you can see here, the police also take it seriously, so feel free to contact the police if you feel like it's something to report.
然后警方对种族歧视行为也是严肃对待的，所以说呢，这上面也有相应的这个号码，在事实的时候，大家应该拨打这些号码。
No, just people taking photos. Okay, so the Virioc has a community reporting tool.
然后呢，有一个社区报告的一个工具。
So this is an online form that makes it easier for people to make short, direct, confidential reports about racism, discrimination, hate speech, and religious vilification.
那通过这个平台的话，大家可以通过保密、匿名的方式，在线提交这个像种族歧视、种族憎恶或者是这种仇恨性语言等相关种族歧视相关的这种简短的报告。
And obviously, a lot of the work that Isabel does would inform the Virioc on where to from here as well. So research is very important.
对，然后这个张丽婷的所代表的这个公司，他们的这种对种族歧视这方面提供实际的数据信息，也对我们的工作有很大的帮助。
So this is the website address to make those anonymous reports.
这个是匿名报告的网址。
Yep, every report makes a difference. Again, it's about data, it's about the research so that we can make that impact and understand where it's happening and how it's happening.
对，这个就像这个当今大数据社会，你的每一次报告呢，就相当于是让这个权重又往这边偏了一点，所以说大家的这个每一个人的这种努力是与我们最终的这个政策变化是密切相关的。
People have asked previously, well, where to from here? What's the outcome? And some of the things I have to say is sometimes it's not a quick fix, and the first steps that we have to make. Is my microphone okay? Yeah. I'm very soft. Oh, 'cause I'm trying to be nice and kind.
I can't hear you.
I need to be more direct. Yeah. So
stand up.
I know. Stand. I know. No, it's enough. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought.
Outcome not quick.
Yeah, outcome's not necessarily quick, but data is a crucial part of it. So making that complaint, making those reports may not necessarily resolve what's going on for you, and that's why we gave other practical solutions coming from with mental health perspective from Dr. Queenie Wu and also from Sifu Damien around, how to build up that resilience as we gather the data to really move forward and know where we can go to from here.
对，然后这种报告呢，有的时候可能它要出一个怎么样的结果或快速的解决问题呢？这个呢，它不是这种可能最有效的方法。但是呢，就像说的，我们的这个数据越多，这个对于我们大方向的这个影响呢，它是起到很至关重要的作用。那么与此同时呢，一些比较实际的，对个人可以起到较快有这种帮助的一些方法，就像刚才吴博士所介绍的一些个人心理健康正念，以及Damien 给我们介绍的一些这种建立这种强大的这种意识和自卫体系的这样的一些实际的方法。
So in some instances, we were talking about how unfortunately, if you don't have details, you might not be able to go down the legal avenue for that. But it doesn't mean, it means, however, that you can still make that complaint on this website. And these are some examples.
这个给大家一些例子，就是说有的时候你可能没有一些具体信息，但是呢，你可以像这样子的方式来描述一下事件。
I don't think I'll go through them. There we go. And so, like I said, you can get help in your language. And here are more details. So the website address, human rights, www.humanrights.vic.gov.au, and the inquiry line.
这个是有多语言支持，然后呢，这个网站以及我们的咨询热线。
So definitely reach out when you can. And now it's Q&A, so we can have a bit more of a discussion. So it's not just me speaking very quietly. Yes? Oh, okay. Lily wants to share another thing. Can we do that before we get started?
好的，那接下来进入这个问答环节。
I just wanted to add, on the federal level, there is also the Fair Work Commission that will investigate areas of discrimination. And I think that is relevant when we have our Asian students that are here who are working. There was a case in 2018 where there was a Malaysian company that hired some Malaysian couple to work in a hotel, and they were paid wages that were very low, and that was held to be because of their race and because they were Malaysian Chinese, and therefore that case the employer was forced to pay $170,000. And even though it was a civil case, it wasn't criminal, Fair Work Commission took that case on and prosecuted the employer. So just to let everyone know that if you feel that you are discriminated against in your workplace because of your race, that is also an avenue of redress for you.
对，这边分享一个案例，就是这个从联邦政府机构来讲的话，还有一个叫公平工作委员会。这边呢，之前是2018年有这么的一个案件，当时呢有一个马来西亚的公司呢雇了一对马来西亚的夫妇，然后呢这个给他们的工资呢十分的低，然后原因呢就是因为他们的马来西亚的这个族裔背景和他的这个华人背景。然后因此呢，当时是通过这个公平工作委员会呢，把他上告，告了以后的话呢，是最后赔偿判了这个17万的赔偿金，并且这个公平工作委员会呢，还将他通过刑法的这个渠道进行了公诉。所以说，就是说大家如果在这个 工作场合如果受到有相关的这样子的情况的话，可以记住，这还有一个这个可以投诉的一条道路。
Thanks for that, Bruce. So getting back to the question that was posed online with regards to some of the statements that some people make and how we might respond to that, I'm happy to open it up to all the panelists, but also the audience. I mean, you might have experienced and have some tips and ideas yourself on how to approach it. So feel free to share your learnings and experience in addition to what we might have to add. Does anyone want to start? You want me to start? Me? Really? Everyone's looking. Okay, all right. I know. Oh, pressure's on. I often start with more questions. When they make that kind of statement, I always ask more questions to understand where they're coming from. So if they say, for example, I can't be racist because I'm a good person, you can say, okay, then how does racism look to you for other people who are not good? And then you'll be able to understand their view of how racism is like and what constitutes a good person from them. And from there, as you ask more questions, not only will you better understand how they are thinking, they will start reflecting on themselves how they are thinking as well. So that's a bit of reverse psychology that they have.
这个就是刚才说有一些人说，这个我是好人，所以说我不是这个种族歧视的行为。那针对于这样子的一些问题，我们怎么回答呢？像我的话呢，一般就会以问问题的方式来应对这样子的一些话。我可能问他，哎，那你为什么觉得这个？你为什么这样觉得呢？那什么样的人这个不是好人呢？就是种族歧视的呢？因为你通过这种反向的这种心理的这种问法呢，可以让他去来解释他内心对于这个概念。就是说，所谓是好人不是种族歧视的这个概念的，它的一个认知体系，然后先通过这种方式，然后再问更多的问题。
And I'm sharing this because I use this all the time. I ask questions. I become curious when I have the mental space to do so. Because the first thing you need to do is look after yourself. If you're not feeling up for having that conversation, walk away. But if you have the energy, and sometimes I have lots of energy, I will ask questions. I will, okay, let me know. Tell me more. I really want to know you as a person, how you came to think this way. And then they feel heard, which is what it is a lot of the times, not feeling heard. And then generating that dialogue and that conversation actually can move them on to a different level of understanding.
对这个，因为像我个人的话呢，就是经常会用这种方式，因为我是一种，当然是这样子。如果你那天状态不好的话，你就当时就可以就不要说了。如果要状态好，像我这个有的时候精力挺旺盛的，我就会很这个好奇，我就说，哎，那你为什么这样想啊？然后你通过这种方式呢，哎，反而他觉得他的观点被人听了以后，然后通过这个建立了这样一个良性的对话窗口的这个方式呢，反而有可能可以帮助到对方。将他的认知上升到一个层次。
Thanks. 师傅 Damien.
I'd like to answer that question that was obviously put in the chat room online. This is one of the reasons we're doing the practical ways of combating racism next week, because to change your state of mind. As admirable as Dr. Judy Tang is answering that question, you need to be in that position of state of mind that you feel answering that question. Now, I say knowledge is power. Once you have the knowledge and you know you're right, you can stand up against anyone once you know what to do. So to be in that state of mind, it's very important to have the right ways to be able to do that at the time that you have to deal with that circumstances. It's basically going to being a police officer. You can't go into the job with a headache and not being focused and being alert if you have to protect the civilians. So you have to be alert, aware, and be well prepared before you have to do so. And that's what we're going to discuss next week in the workshop.
对的，想回答那个问题的这个正好来回答一下，就是说，像碰到对方发出这样子的评论的时候，怎么应对？首先的一点，可能不是想怎么应对，而是怎么样进入一个应对状态，就是我们刚才说的这个思维状态。那么也就是我们下一周的这个课程里边讲的，如何来建立起这样的一个防御体系，随时这个雷达都开着的，并且呢，刚才说了，知识就是力量，通过知道的这一些内容，我们就可以在该发生反应的时候，自动做出相应的回应。就像一个警察上去每天上班的时候，如果说他精神注意力不集中或者是头痛的话，他怎样保持一个警惕状态，能在这个紧急事件发生的那一刻迅速做出正确的反应。
I saw you had your hand up. I'm just quick asking if anyone else. Did you want to make a comment? I will definitely come to you, June.
just quickly say that the answer to that question legally is it's not about whether you feel you're a good person or you're not. The law takes a very objective test. It says, is your behavior one that an objective person can say, because of what you've done, your conduct or your behavior, other people are incited, or the words that you use have incited, or other people feel that it could possibly be racial vilification or racial incite or cause racial hatred. So it doesn't matter whether you don't intend it. If other people on an objective test, you will be found to be breaching the laws.
然后从法律的角度来回答刚才这个 Zoom 这边问出来的这个问题呢，就是说，你说我是好人，我就不是种族歧视的这种主观的认识，在法律的客观性面前，是由法律说了算的。因为当在这个时候，您客观的这句话影响到了旁边的人，而造成了某种法律后果的时候，那这句话就由法律认为你是已经变成了种族歧视了。所以说呢。即便你可能说这句话没有这个想法，但造成了其他人做出了相应的法律后果，那你的这个行为就变成了这个种族歧视的行为。
And this is why you never argue with lawyers.
所以说不要跟律师争辩。
Really quickly, yes, coming from June.
I wanted to quickly. Talking about it's two things. It's one thing is reporting system. So we're talking about equal opportunity, but from professional perspective, it's my personal, I will work in finance sector, right, for all of those years. So I found in the banking sector, and you can see, and then lots of people, if it's Asian people, maybe they can agree with me. So we have to work very hard. But in my team, and I have the example, we have it's our team, where average salary was $98,000, right? But one that's there employed, one that's Chinese young lady. Right, she's equally qualified and she experienced, but her salary is $87,000. So that's the difference is that you can see. In the things is the very subtle and you can feel. And she worked exactly the same portfolio as we do, right? It's basically it's our team. So it's you have to really look at it. And she was complaining to the manager, and then actually she has to resign. So just like those examples and we're talking about.
That's where you will probably take it to Fair Work.
Correct, that's right. So, and the things is the equal opportunity Fair Work, and then how you can encourage people. The subtlety, the difference, if you fear it and basically unfair, right, you need a reporting system in place, and also need to talk into the legal, advice and this thing. And for my discrimination, my instances happened to me, the reporting system, I think lots of things need to improve. It's because I did reporting to equal opportunity and human rights, and I did call them the 1300 number, but they're only dealing with the personal thing. So that's something. So I think I used it today in an opportunity just to share my experience and share my view. My view, not necessarily everybody agree. Not necessarily, but I think it's my view, and I want to let people alert and people understand, right? And I think if we keep it silent, and people started to, and they think don't want to speak it up, you possibly never have the strong voice, and that's the thing. But anyway, and thanks for the lovely panels, and thanks for everyone, and thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, June. Thank you. Yes.
My question is directed to you, Queenie. You share with us 6 different my question is for you, Queenie. You share with us 6 ways to deal with mental illness, things like accept change, keep balance, and so on. Do you are they in any sort of order of importance? Like, do you do one first before the next, or do one more than the other?
No, that's why it's in the circles. You can pick anywhere you want to start.
Say it again, sorry, I didn't
That's
quite
why
hear
it's
that.
in the circles. You can pick anywhere you want to start.
Yeah, but do you go from one to the next and so on, or you just randomly?
No, I think you can start with anywhere that you feel like it's easiest for you to start. Yeah, because it's working with the mementos. Once you start doing something, you're more likely to continue.
Perhaps you would like to give us more pointers as how we would choose among those things. You want to take this offline? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, anybody else have? There you go. Thank you.
For that matter, what order would you put them in?
Good question. Good take it offline.
Mathematically, there's more than there are a number of ways, all right?
Well-
Queenie's professional opinion.
Well,
Depends on your
my
situation.
non-professional opinion, but as an educator, I would put first, keep things in perspective.
Talking
There's
to other
stupid people everywhere.
That is nice.
Mindfulness, hopeful outline, so outlook are very important as well. Anyway.
Can I say something? Not professional view, thank you. But just some sort of mindset to start with. You use this word mental illness. And I think one thing, I think Queenie would agree with me, a lot of times what we're experiencing is not illness. It's quite common and it's emotional. And sometimes it's just overall well-being. So I think we need to change these words and narratives. This is one of the reasons why Asians or Chinese are, not really getting the support and need we have or reaching out. Simply because we think mental health is related to illness, problem, or sort of, psychological issues. It's not necessarily that way. And a lot of times, it's really just overall well-being, emotional well-being. So I think at whatever level you're experiencing, you reach out. You reach out for that support. You reach out for that chat, that external expert advice. So we need to change that mindset. It's not illness.
I would say that for many Chinese, it's more important to get over this losing face. I think we touch
Absolutely.
on that.
Absolutely.
All right.
And
That, in my experience, has held a lot of people back with undesirable results.
Yep.
All right?
Yeah.
As you will know, the more you borrow, and the other thing is this stiff upper lip. Upper lip, in fact, there's a Chinese saying, a Hong Kong saying, I should say, as a man, you should 男人流血不流淚, right?
係
A man would rather bleed
not
than to
to
cry.
cry. Yeah,
That
that's
is a wrong
deeply in our
concept.
culture. Absolutely.
So-
Men, women, younger, older, that's in our culture.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think Queenie will agree is, in psychological term, we don't use our patients, we use our clients. We don't call people that we're helping as patients. They're not patients, how do you say?
病人.
病人, yeah, very good. We call them clients as 客户, so that's difference because they are not 病人, they are not having sickness, It's very common to experience these things and we need to reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Isabel.
Thank you.
Oh.
Mark, I think it's your turn now.
Sebastian knows that unforced generation why Chinese
I'm
language
just
is too
doing
big.
Mark, I know you, so.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Yes. Behind you.
This is just a question I'm curious about, but I don't know if you have the answer. But you mentioned all the impacts of racism, and I just wondered if occasionally or sometimes it escalates to suicide.
Yes. I think I was supposed to be in my slides, but I kind of had to reduce the length of the slides. Yes, definitely. I include self-harm and suicidalities. Definitely. So, because that leads to depressions, and when we go into the severe level of depression, sometimes people start losing a hope about their life, their worth, and then start self-harming, and then moving to suicide. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thanks.
I see Mano there, so I just want to introduce her very quickly. She's the president of a non-profit organization organization called VicWise, and she works very closely with multicultural international students. And the mental health is one of the key things that that she works very closely with the international students with. And I think she can definitely share some insights and experience in terms of how the younger Chinese or Asian international students experience and that mental effect on them. Because she was saying some of them actually left the country or, experienced some sort of level of depression and all of those stories.
对，这边呢看到这个我们 VicWise 这一家非盈利机构呢的负责人 Mano 在这边，然后呢他们这家机构呢是专门为留学生提供很多这个心理健康啊以及国际学生很多帮助。因为之前呢他们这边也有很多的这些实际的案例，有一些学生可能受到种种的这种精神健康这方面的困扰，抑郁啊或者离开国家，所以说可能 Mano 这边可以给我们分享一些。
Thank you, Isabel, for throwing me into the pit. I think what we need to be aware that with international students, they are a very vulnerable group. They have been somewhere left out there, and they're in the cracks with minimum support. And one of the things I agree with Isabel, we like to use the term emotional wellness, not mental health, irrespective of which culture they come from. What we are trying to do within the non-profit organization, which is VicWise, is to help them find that balance. Because during lockdown, it was very, very challenging for them. We did have issues with anxiety, isolation, self-harm, you name it, it was all there. Body image, food, the whole thing. So now what we're trying to do is to try and bring them out and get them connected. The human connection has been missing for the last 2 years, and that's what we are growing and trying to get that connection to take place. I've got 8 students here today, but I've realized that a few of them have left because today is a Sunday, and they've got their friends waiting for them. They want to play, as they say. That's the term that they use. But I think the important part is finding that balance before it even reaches the self-harm stage. So knowledge is important, raising their awareness, making them be aware. If someone were to come to you and he doesn't look well, he's homeless, he's on the street, and he says, what are you doing here? Who are you? Go home, you chinky person. Those sorts of things. We need to teach them about what is called mindfulness, as Shifu Damien has talked about, and also about emotional intelligence, because our students come from a very protected background, and so these sorts of things are areas that we need to help them build and develop to make those informed decisions when they're in that position of racism. So that's a little bit from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mano.
这个说到国际学生呢，实际上它是一个非常弱势的一个群体，然后在整个这个疫情期间呢，是一个有点类似于被遗忘的一个人群。然后在我们这个机构的话呢，我们一般管这种一个重要的这个考虑因素，我们管它叫情绪健康，不管它叫精神健康。因为这个情绪健康呢，说白了，它就是一个这个寻找一个情绪的一个平衡点。不管是人的喜怒哀乐，它的一个中间的一个平衡点。那么呢，在疫情期间呢，很多的这个学生呢，也是由于这个失去了与人之间的联系，很多人也经历焦虑，被孤立，然后甚至有些人自残。刚才这个Judy 介绍的这些情况都有发生过。然后现在呢，我们这边主推的呢，就是帮助这些留学生来尽量的给这个加强社会联系性。来参加各种各样的这个活动，加强他们与他人的联系。那么我们本来今天是有8个学生来呢，我看到现在好像有一些人已经提前走了，因为今天也是星期天，所以说呢也是可以帮助他们可以更好的跟自己的朋友这个联系。然后呢，在这个过程当中呢，也像刚才 Damien 师傅说到的，这个找到这个情绪健康的一个平衡点呢，关键点呢就是要有这个知识，有这个意识，并且在这个情绪健康的平衡快要不平衡的时候，就提前去防止它出现不平衡的状况。另外一点呢，就是这个我们在教学生这种叫做 EQ， 就是叫做情商和这个正念的这种思维模式。因为很多的留学生呢，我们发现呢，他们之前的话呢，可能都是属于在这个家里的环境与社会就是说碰到的挫折呀，或者是保护啊太多了这样的一个环境下，所以说他们这方面的这个能力呢，实际上是比较弱的。所以说这一块也是我们着重在帮助他们培养，以帮助他们更好的应对这个情绪健康，培养更好的情绪健康。
Thank you, Ruth. I know there's one more comment, and then we'll get the wonderful Mark to close it off. Yes.
First of all, I agree with everything you said. And a word of advice to any students who are left, where are they?
Gone.
Okay, well, pass it on. Make sure, I'm speaking this from a teacher's point of view, make sure that your teacher is aware of you. Don't be shy. Talk to your teachers. Make them aware of your background. It makes an awful lot of difference, because otherwise teachers will sort of talk generally and you will feel left out. But if they know something about you, so don't be afraid to have private chats, it makes a whole lot of difference to how you feel in class and to how teachers relate to you. So don't be shy. We're trained to do this. Just do it. Okay?
That's a great tip. Thank you.
好的，这个 Amelia 刚才分享的就是我这个分享呢，更多是从这个教育的角度，而且十分赞同刚才 Manu 这边所说的所有的点，然后给大家一个小技巧，就是说，要跟老师建立起一些关系，要让他对你有一个特别的这样的一个认知。不要担心这个不敢去跟老师说，你可以去跟老师说一下你的这个背景啊，说一下自己的这个族裔文化呀，这样子，老师在上课的时候，他就不会这个一概而论的，好像你不存在似的。你也会感到他关注你，他也会在说话的时候注意到你。所以说呢，只管去跟老师说。
There'll be definitely more opportunity for discussion later. In the meantime, I'll invite Mark up to close things off.
Thank you, Judy. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming today and being part of this activity, and all of those people on the webinar. I really appreciate you coming. I think Damien was talking about a bus, and I regard the bus as a journey. We all get on the bus to be on this journey. So we weren't here today to resolve everything about racism. You wouldn't learn everything today in one session. It's an ongoing journey that we all face. And we all face it personally and collectively as a community. We've been facing it for 200 years. In our museum here, you'll see on the top floor that racism is part of that exhibition. And it's not, and we are victims, Asian and Chinese Australians are victims of racism. But we have all been immigrants, other than First Nations people. We're all immigrants to this country, and even First Nations people obviously have been victimised by racism. So it's a journey that we all face as a nation, and multiculturalism is something that's not an easy thing to do, because we are such a country in the way that we have historically set ourselves up. We face racism as part of what we are as a nation, or not nation really, as a community. So it's not something that's particularly relevant to us, but it affects the whole of our society. So I think we have to understand that where we are as our place in society, and that is the important thing, that we are definitely not alone, and we face it all collectively. So I'd like to thank you all for coming, and hope you can continue on this journey, and we're quite happy to continue on this. I think that we've had a really good response to this, and so I think we'll continue this as part of the museum's mission, or our advocacy to support. And so now I'd like to give a big hand together for our panellists who all came here. They're all here doing it voluntarily, and I really appreciate your input in what you've done for us. Thank you. Big clap for them. And I'd like to sort of be amazed at sorry, Bruce, I suppose you want to translate that first. Sorry.
这个非常再次感谢各位来参加我们今天活动，特别是现场到达以及我们在视频上参加活动的各位朋友。 我觉得呢，我们今天这个呢，就像 Damien 说，他是给了我们一辆车，我觉得这是一个 bus， 我们都在这个 bus 上面。但是呢，像这个种族歧视的问题呢，不是说我们一句话、两句话、一天两天就能解决的一个问题，它是一个持续发展的，是一场旅程，是一场经历。然后呢，我们也不是说每一个个人自己光去经历，而是每一个社群，除了华人社群，很多的社群来到澳大利亚这样一个多元文化特色的移民国家都会经历的问题。过去的这个200年来，我们华人也有一些在种族歧视这方面的各种历史，也在我们展览馆的顶楼有这个展览部分专门讲到。然后作为这个多元文化的这一点来说呢，像我们这样一个澳洲这么一个多民族的一个国家来讲，它本身也是一个很艰难的一个过程，它是有一个长期的历史，但是呢，它也是在往好的方向发展。当然，我们作为这个华人这个少数民族呢，可能有的时候需要了解到我们自己在这样一个这个澳大利亚全国当中，自己认为自己的这个是占什么样的一个位置，和全国人民对我们的看法的一个位置。只有先了解了，有了这个知识，才能更好的来应对一些可能我们还不知道存在的问题。那么最后呢，希望再次的感谢大家参加我们的活动，希望呢我们的这一场旅程呢，在这个bus的旅程上呢能够继续下去，然后也再次的感谢各位的嘉宾以及各位来宾的支持。
Is that it? Thanks, Bruce. I'd like to then thank Bruce, the translation machine. Thank you very much, Bruce. I don't think we could have done without Bruce today. He was the glue that joined us all together. Thank you. So I hope today was a very, for me, and every time we do this, it's a very empowering sort of situation for all of us. Even us panellists, we get a vibe out of this that builds us. And I hope that we can all build on our collective, resilience together and gain our own confidence and understanding and build our daily lives as an individual and as a group of people. So I really thank you for coming. Come to the museum at any time in the future, because there's a lot of history there, and what you can learn also about our 200-year journey is also part. When I say 200 years, the first Chinese-Australian came here in 1818, and we tell that story throughout the museum and that whole journey on your bus, Damien. So thank you. So I'll end today's event. So come next week. Damien's on next week. And if you want to come back the following week, we've got another session on. So please do. And if you would like to display that we are all strong within, you can buy a T-shirt over there, and you can show anybody their back. Yeah. Here we are. We are strong within. So yeah, by all means, pick up a T-shirt over there. So, but thank you again for coming. Much appreciated. Thank you.
非常感谢大家。感谢大家，希望我们这个充满自信、充满自豪，来弘扬我们的华人文化，不仅是个人，也是作为一个群体。然后以后有空呢，常来我们博物馆看看，200年的澳洲华人历史，有很多精彩的故事。首个华人自1818年来到澳大利亚，这上面有很多关于他的介绍。我们团结一心，继续坐上 Damien 的 bus。然后呢，为了要展现我们华人当自强，可以买一件 T 恤衫穿在街上，来为我们华人的自豪感到自豪。
Yeah, thank you. That's the end of today's session, but there is afternoon tea for you to have, and we can all have a chat, some more discussion if you would like.
活动圆满结束，大家想聊天的继续聊天，想吃喝的后面有点小点，谢谢。
Yeah, thank you.